Man divorces wife over financial problems. Regrets it when he sees her on the cover of Forbes. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. Ella had always been supportive of Thomas. For years, she stood by him as he chased one big idea after another, even when his dreams felt like dark clouds casting shadows over their lives. She gave up her job to manage their home, keeping the household running while Thomas focused entirely on building his business. She believed in him, believed in their life together. But it seemed that her faith alone was never enough. Thomas's ventures didn't bring in the success he had hoped for. The debts piled up, one after another, until they were trapped in a suffocating financial storm. What started as a few missed mortgage payments turned into threatening letters from banks and creditors. Ella did her best to encourage Thomas, to ease his anxiety with gentle reassurances, but the pressure only seemed to harden his heart toward her. When he looked at her now, it was no longer with the love and warmth she once knew, but with disdain and frustration that made her stomach churn. One chilly autumn afternoon, Thomas came home with a look in his eyes that Ella hadn't seen before, a cold detachment that was more cutting than any of his recent frustrations. He sat her down and explained, in a tone devoid of emotion, that he had decided to end their marriage. The words echoed around her like a relentless drumbeat, each syllable hitting her with the force of betrayal. "It's over, Ella," he said, his voice flat. "I need to move on, and frankly, you're holding me back." Ella sat in stunned silence, barely comprehending his words. "Thomas, what are you talking about? We're supposed to get through this together. We've always been a team." His gaze hardened, cold and unsympathetic. "A team? Ella, you don't understand ambition. You've never pushed yourself the way I have. You've held me back with your lack of vision. I need someone who can be my equal, not just tag along." The words stung, and Ella felt her heart splinter as he continued to unravel every thread of their life together, dismissing her contributions as if they were nothing. Thomas finalized the divorce swiftly, leaving Ella with next to nothing. In a matter of weeks, he was gone, his absence filling the house with a painful emptiness that she hadn't prepared for. She was left in a financial hole, saddled with unpaid bills, and burdened with the weight of his words that lingered like bruises on her heart. With nothing but her resilience and a small amount of savings she'd squirreled away, Ella began the hard journey of rebuilding. She sold their house, opting for a tiny apartment on the edge of town, furnished with only the essentials. Each piece of furniture was a reminder of what she'd lost, but also a symbol of her survival. She forced herself to let go of the bitterness, refusing to let Thomas's cruelty shape her future. In her solitude, she turned to the one thing that had always brought her peace: crafting. Jewelry making had always been a hobby, a small joy she indulged in when life felt too heavy. She spent hours in her little apartment, stringing together beads and threading wires, creating intricate pieces that seemed to capture her emotions. Each necklace and bracelet became a reflection of her strength, her resilience, and the silent fury that she channeled into something beautiful. One evening, she looked at her latest creation, a delicate silver necklace adorned with soft, translucent gemstones that shimmered like morning dew, and felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time: pride. She took a photo of it, almost on a whim, and posted it on a social media page she'd rarely used. To her surprise, people began to comment almost immediately, drawn to the beauty and elegance of her work. Strangers left messages of admiration, asking if the piece was for sale, if she had more like it. Ella felt a rush of excitement. She hadn't expected anyone to notice, let alone care. The next day, she decided to upload a few more photos of her creations. Soon, her inbox was flooded with messages, and orders started trickling in. The response was small at first, but it gave her hope, a glimmer of possibility that maybe, just maybe, she could build something of her own. She set up an online store, carefully curating each piece, photographing them with the little skills she had, and writing heartfelt descriptions for each item. Her story, written between the lines, became a part of each piece, and her audience felt it. Within weeks, her jewelry line, now branded Ella's Gems, had grown beyond her expectations. People from all over were ordering her handcrafted pieces, and each sale brought her a step closer to independence. Meanwhile, Thomas was facing his own struggles. His fresh start wasn't as golden as he'd anticipated. Without Ella's quiet support, his plans faltered, his confidence waned, and his ambitions crumbled under the weight of his own arrogance. The very qualities he'd dismissed in Ella were the ones he found himself needing the most. But Ella didn't dwell on his struggles. She had her own path now, a journey that was hers alone. Her work consumed her in the best possible way, filling her days and nights with purpose. She poured everything into Ella's gems, perfecting her craft, learning business skills on her own, and connecting with customers who cherished her work. Her brand grew, and soon enough, small boutiques were reaching out, wanting to carry her pieces. Months turned into a year, and Ella's gems had blossomed into a successful business. Her name began to circulate in the artisan jewelry world, drawing attention from fashion bloggers and influencers. One day, she received an email from a popular magazine, requesting an interview about her story, intrigued by her rise from obscurity to success. Ella was taken aback, barely able to comprehend that people found her journey worth telling. In the interview, she shared her struggles, her perseverance, and the inspiration behind each piece. She spoke openly about how crafting had been her refuge during the darkest times, a way to find strength when everything else seemed to fall apart. The article went viral, bringing an influx of attention that she had never anticipated. Orders flooded her website, and she had to hire a small team just to keep up with the demand. One morning, as she was preparing orders, she received a call from a major fashion house that had discovered her brand through the magazine feature. They offered her a partnership to design a line of exclusive pieces, an opportunity that could take her brand to new heights. Ella accepted with a quiet pride, realizing that she had created something that was truly her own. Across town, in a dingy office where the walls seemed to close in on him, Thomas came across a magazine with her face on the cover. The headline read, "Ella's Gems, From Heartbreak to High Fashion." As he read her story, a pang of regret twisted inside him. He remembered the days when she had quietly stood by his side, her strength hidden behind a gentle smile. And now, she had become everything he'd once thought she couldn't be. Successful, independent, admired. The realization was a bitter pill to swallow, and it hit him with a force that left him reeling. Ella, the woman he had cast aside, had risen from the ashes of his betrayal to create something remarkable, while he struggled to even hold on to the remnants of his failed dreams. Ella's world was changing rapidly. The partnership with a fashion house propelled her brand to new heights, transforming Ella's Gems from a small online shop to a name recognized by industry insiders and celebrities alike. Orders poured in, collaborations were lined up, and her team expanded as demand soared. But through all the excitement, Ella remained grounded, remembering the pain and struggle that had birthed her success. As the months passed, her confidence grew. She no longer saw herself as a woman who had been discarded. Instead, she was a creator, a designer, a businesswoman. She looked back on the broken version of herself, the woman left in that empty home, and marveled at how far she'd come. The resilience she had built was woven into each piece she crafted, a silent testament to her journey. One evening, Ella found herself invited to an industry gala, a black tie event hosted by a major luxury brand, one she had admired from afar in her early days as a designer. Standing in front of the mirror, she hardly recognized the woman staring back. Dressed in an elegant gown, with jewelry from her own line glinting around her neck and wrists, she felt a newfound sense of power and pride. This was her night, a celebration of the success she had fought so hard to achieve. At the gala, she mingled with designers, executives, and media personalities who had taken an interest in her story. Her nerves settled as she saw the admiration in their eyes. She wasn't just a woman in the background anymore. She was respected, valued, and sought after. As she spoke about her work, she could feel the energy of the room shift, the genuine appreciation for her story resonating with everyone around her. Amid the evening's buzz, she was introduced to a man named Lucas, a well-known CEO in the fashion industry. He had heard of her work and was intrigued by her journey. As they talked, she felt an undeniable connection, an ease that she hadn't felt in years. Lucas appreciated her vision, her creativity, and her resilience, qualities she had come to treasure in herself. Their conversation extended into the night, and for the first time since her painful divorce, Ella allowed herself to envision a future where she could be both successful and happy, one that didn't involve compromising who she was for someone else's ambitions. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Thomas's life was unraveling. The fresh start he had pursued so eagerly after leaving Ella turned out to be nothing more than a fragile illusion. His business ventures continued to falter, one after another, each failure hitting him harder than the last. His financial instability worsened, and soon, he found himself haunted by the very fears he had once run from. He tried to drown his sorrows in expensive outings and fleeting relationships, but they provided only temporary solace. As each plan fell apart, he began to realize that the stable foundation he had once relied on had been Ella's steady presence. The cold silence of his new life grew unbearable. In the empty echoes of his failed ambitions, he was left with a bitter truth. He had abandoned the one person who had truly believed in him, and now he had nothing to show for it. The climax came one afternoon when he walked into a coffee shop, hoping to find a moment of distraction. As he scanned the room, he froze at the sight of a familiar face, Ella's. She was laughing, her eyes bright, her expression one of pure happiness as she talked with a group of people around her. She looked radiant, confident, and unmistakably fulfilled. Thomas's heart twisted painfully. He couldn't help but wonder if that laughter had ever been for him, or if he had been too blinded by his own aspirations to notice it. Driven by a strange compulsion, Thomas left without a word, but he couldn't shake the image of her from his mind. Later that night, he searched for her online, curiosity and regret mingling as he found himself scrolling through articles, interviews, and photos of her at industry events. The magnitude of her success was staggering. Each mention of her name was paired with glowing praise, stories of her resilience, and a brand that had become synonymous with elegance and empowerment. Days later, his curiosity got the best of him, and he picked up a copy of Forbes that featured her story. The headline read, "Ella's Gems: How One Woman Transformed Heartbreak into a High-Fashion Empire." He stared at the cover, feeling the weight of his mistakes like a leaden stone in his chest. As he flipped through the pages, he read about the hardships she'd endured after their divorce, the late nights, the sacrifice, the unwavering determination. Each word felt like a revelation, a glimpse into the strength he had underestimated and the resilience he had never known she possessed. In the article, Ella spoke of her journey with grace, mentioning the pain of betrayal but without bitterness. She talked about how she had been forced to confront her fears, to discover talents she never knew she had, and to find strength she hadn't realized was within her. She didn't mention him directly, but her words hit him like a confession of his own guilt. For the first time, Thomas saw Ella in a different light. He saw her as the woman he had never truly understood, a woman who had quietly endured his harsh words, his dismissals, and his endless criticisms. A woman who had the patience and the grace to rise above it all and create a legacy that would forever overshadow his own failures. Thomas's regret grew unbearable, consuming his thoughts day and night. He tried to focus on salvaging what little was left of his own career, but his efforts felt futile. Each attempt to restart his business was met with indifference or outright rejection. His former colleagues and friends distanced themselves, wary of his financial instability and unsteady ventures. He had lost the credibility that once opened doors for him, and the respect he had taken for granted had slipped through his fingers. One day, unable to suppress his remorse any longer, Thomas reached out to Ella, sending a carefully worded message, hoping for a chance to reconnect, to apologize, and perhaps to rekindle some form of relationship, even if only as friends. He waited anxiously, checking his phone every few minutes, but no response came. The silence from her end spoke louder than any words could. Ella had moved on, leaving him behind in the life he had built out of ambition and hubris. Ella, on the other hand, barely gave the message a second thought. Her life had evolved beyond the shadow of her past, and her days were filled with purpose and joy. She had found a community of supporters, mentors, and friends who saw her as the woman she had always been: strong, talented, and compassionate. Her partnership with Lucas continued to flourish, both professionally and personally. They bonded over their shared love for design and their commitment to making a positive impact in the industry. Lucas admired her resilience and the unique perspective she brought to every project. Slowly, Ella allowed herself to trust again, realizing that love didn't have to be sacrificed for success. It could coexist and even thrive when shared with the right person. As their relationship blossomed, Ella found herself thinking less and less about the painful chapter of her past. Thomas's betrayal had once defined her journey, but now it was only a part of the story, a stepping stone that had led her to the happiness and success she now enjoyed. Months passed, and Ella's life became a blend of professional triumphs and personal fulfillment. She had reached a place of peace, one she never could have imagined in the days following her divorce. Her heart, once burdened by bitterness, had softened, allowing her to embrace the possibilities of love and friendship once more. Thomas, however, remained haunted by his regret. His former life, the one he had so callously abandoned, seemed like a distant memory, a memory that now appeared more like a dream he had selfishly discarded. He came to realize that his own ambition had blinded him to the most valuable treasure he had possessed: Ella's unwavering support and love. But the revelation had come too late. She had moved on, rising to heights he could only dream of. The woman he had once dismissed as lacking ambition had created a legacy that overshadowed anything he had ever hoped to achieve. As he watched her from afar, he could only reflect on his loss and the knowledge that he would forever remain on the outside of her success, a mere observer of the life she had rebuilt without him. With each passing day, Ella's life grew richer in ways she hadn't thought possible. Her partnership with Lucas brought in creative opportunities she had once only dreamed of, and their relationship blossomed with a respect and warmth that felt genuine. For the first time, Ella allowed herself to see a future filled not only with professional success but also with love and companionship, a life she had built on her terms. Her brand, Ella's Gems, had become a household name, representing not only beauty but resilience and empowerment. Media outlets clamored to cover her success story, often focusing on her rise from heartbreak to high fashion. Her inbox was filled with messages from women around the world, sharing their own stories of perseverance and thanking her for the inspiration. She became a symbol of strength, an icon of the belief that one could rise from life's hardest blows with grace and grit. As her public image grew, so did her influence. She used her platform not just to promote her jewelry but to support causes close to her heart, funding scholarships for aspiring designers, setting up initiatives for women who had experienced hardships similar to her own, and advocating for fair trade practices in the jewelry industry. Ella felt as if she had finally found her calling, creating a legacy that went beyond financial success. One afternoon, she received a message from Forbes magazine, inviting her to a special feature as part of their Women of Influence series. They wanted her on the cover, showcasing her as a visionary entrepreneur who had not only built a thriving brand but also impacted lives with her philanthropic work. The invitation felt surreal, but she accepted with a grateful heart, knowing how far she had come. On the day of the interview, Ella entered the Forbes office, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and humility. She sat across from the journalist, sharing her journey with an honesty that left the interviewer captivated. She spoke about her love for jewelry making, the pain that had driven her to create, and the unexpected joy of watching her work become a symbol of strength. Toward the end of the interview, the journalist asked a question that took her by surprise. If you could say anything to the person who once doubted you, who perhaps inspired this journey in an unexpected way, what would it be? Ella paused, a soft smile crossing her face as she thought back to the pain that had once filled her life. I would thank him, she said, her voice steady and calm, because it was in the darkness that I found my light. His doubt forced me to believe in myself in ways I never thought possible. I wouldn't change a thing. Her words resonated deeply, and by the end of the interview, the journalist's admiration was evident. The feature was set to be the cover story, and it promised to highlight not only Ella's success but her remarkable spirit, a testament to the strength of a woman who had transformed adversity into triumph. As the Forbes issue hit newsstands, the story gained traction, quickly becoming one of the magazine's most read articles of the year. Ella's face graced the cover, her expression one of calm confidence, a quiet defiance that spoke of battles fought and won. Her story circulated widely, inspiring countless readers who saw in her a reflection of their own struggles and hopes. Somewhere across town, Thomas picked up a copy, his heart heavy with regret as he stared at the woman he had once dismissed. Each word of her story echoed his failures, reminding him of the life he had thrown away in pursuit of a hollow ambition. Ella's success had overshadowed anything he had ever achieved, and he knew, with a certainty that left him aching, that his life would never hold the fulfillment she had found. Determined to confront his regret, Thomas reached out to her once more, sending a heartfelt message acknowledging his mistakes and apologizing for the pain he had caused. He poured his remorse into each sentence, hoping that perhaps she might find it in her heart to forgive him, even if they could never truly reconnect. When Ella read the message, she felt a mixture of emotions: nostalgia, a touch of sadness, and, surprisingly, forgiveness. But she had long since moved past the wounds he had left, and her heart was no longer burdened by bitterness. She chose not to respond, not out of spite, but because she had found peace in the life she had built. For her, forgiveness had come naturally, woven into the fabric of her success and her happiness. As time went on, Ella continued to expand her brand and her influence, becoming a powerful voice for women in business and a symbol of resilience. She traveled the world, meeting people who shared her passion and supporting causes that fueled her soul. She and Lucas grew closer, eventually marrying in a quiet ceremony surrounded by friends and loved ones who had supported her journey. In him, Ella found a partner who celebrated her success and stood by her with unwavering respect and admiration. Years later, as she looked back on her journey, Ella felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Her life had been shaped by struggles, but those struggles had led her to a place of profound fulfillment. The brand she had built was thriving, her marriage was filled with love, and her legacy had become one of strength, compassion, and transformation. In the end, Thomas faded into her past, a chapter she had long since closed. Ella's story was no longer defined by the pain he had caused, but by the life she had created. She had risen from heartbreak to high fashion, crafting a legacy that spoke of endurance, resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of a woman who refused to be defeated. Ella's gems became a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever been doubted, a reminder that life's greatest challenges often reveal life's greatest strengths. And for Ella, the woman who had once been left with nothing, her success was a quiet, steady triumph, one that would echo for generations to come. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story.